I'm joined online today by Dr. Andy Hodjai, a lecturer in law at UCL in the UK, as well as an author and a researcher. Andy, I understand that tensions are running very high over the situation and that people are upset and worried, but I have seen an incredible amount of racism and hate speech on social media. I've had quite a lot of insults directed at me personally as well. But also I'm sad to say that some of this rhetoric has come from journalists as well. And I find it quite sad that Albanians who for years have been top of all charts for asylum and migration into Europe and have received horrific xenophobia from politicians, media and the public are choosing to use racist slurs when voicing their opposition to this deal. Now, I very much believe that you can oppose an idea, a deal or a decision, and I welcome people opposing and questioning the government anywhere in the world. But I think that when you use racism or any kind of hate speech, you immediately remove all credibility from your stance. So that's my view, but I've brought you here today to talk about yours. So welcome to Inside Albania once again.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be with you and to discuss this topic. Well, first thing first, I am mortified by what I've also read and heard, and I do condemn them, and I am completely in line with you. What is quite interesting is that for far too long, we have always complained, and when we have been at the receiving end, we have been very quickly to condemn it. However, now that the tables have turned, it seems that we are acting exactly like those that have made those remarks for Albanians. So I think it's quite wrong in the way that it's being framed, and it's taking away all of the credibility in the discussion and in some of the questions. Absolutely, we can question both governments, the Italian and the Albanian government, as well as the details and why it was kept not transparent and so on. But we should not include racism at all. We should not make any sort of remarks that can diminish any of the initiatives that they are trying to do in this specific deal. So absolutely, I think it's wrong, and we should learn by this experience. And I was hoping this should not be the case, especially because Albanians have been at the receiving end. And it does not help to have a constructive debate about what actually is in the deal, what Albania can achieve, and what we should achieve, and how do we move forward from this.
And actually, that's what I was going to ask you. You know, in your view, what role can the media play in sort of keeping this debate focused on the issue at hand rather than exacerbating it, making it too political, making it sort of too full of hate speech?
Well, first of all, we have to remove the sort of racist and xenophobic remark, and also the casual remarks that they kind of slided in, and it's quite unfortunate. I've seen that quite a lot. Secondly, it's really important that we get experts to talk about specific angles of the deal, because not everyone can sort of comment on the deal specifically. So one could come from a human rights perspective, one from the legal perspective, one from the EU law perspective. So the media plays a really important role in terms of framing and who they are putting in to explain some of it. Also, who the government is bringing in to comment on these specific issues. So the media can play a real important role to inform it.
As for the agreement itself, I remember around a year or so ago, I believe it was, there was a similar deal with the UK which was rumoured. The Albanian government were quite quick to deny that they would consider processing asylum applications for the UK in Albania. Why do you think Albania was very against this proposal from the UK, but now with Italy, you know, it's something great, a sign of solidarity?
So the agreement with the UK, actually the talks were quite advanced, but politically because it got leaked. And one of the challenges, or at least it was viewed as a challenge with the UK, was that the UK was going to give money and then Albania would process everything. And that's what the UK managed to do with Rwanda, where the UK is paying £170 million a year, and then Rwanda would deal with all of the processes and so on. So that was kind of some of the detail. And when we compared with the Italian agreement, from the information that we know, so let's make that clear to everybody. But in terms of why he felt with the UK, the political parties did not really see eye to eye, so there was not really sort of a trust between one another. So it's been also quite openly during Theresa May's tenure, as well as during Boris Johnson's tenure, when there were a lot of requests from the Albanian side to do joint operation on illegal migration and organized crime. That never came into effect because there was a clear distrust between the UK institution and Albanian institution, because they feared in Albania they were quite corrupt and unable to share data specifically. So that kind of fell through. So that's kind of the background of it all. And then it was quite of an easy way out to say, well, we won't do it. However, with Italy, it's slightly different than the UK, because with Italy, Albania, it's far more close. And Italy does carry a lot of weight in the European Union. And since in Albania, all political parties agree on EU accession, and the UK does not have any more a voice because of Brexit. Therefore,
don't mention that word.
In politics, it's all about practicalities.
Yes.
And it kind of makes sense that with Italy, we go forward because Italy could push forward the EU accession to Albania. And since it's a founding member of the EU, does carry a lot of weight. So that is behind. Of course, solidarity does play a role, and that's not something to be denied of, because many Albanians turned up to the shores of Italy in the early 90s, and we do know from that experience. So that is in the Albanians' conscience. And unlike the UK, we only managed to go to the UK in the late 90s or 2000s. So with Italy, it's a completely different dynamic.
As an Albanian, what are your views on this deal? Do you think it could benefit the country in some way? I mean, aside from EU accession and sort of having the support of Italy there, do you see any benefits for Albania? And that is assuming that whatever is implemented in the end is in line with EU law, local law, and international law.
So in terms of unpacking this specific question, and thank you, I think it's important to, when we describe about the benefits, to be quite clear. First of all, I think Albania, it's right, and it should be able to help on the global crisis on migration. Half of Albanians live abroad, so we know what it's like to struggle. We know what it's like to be without a home. We do know what are all those implications. So if Albania, how many resources it has, even though it has really little, it's a good gesture to offer shelter. What I would have preferred would have been that Albania would do it on its own, rather than having another country ask and so on. So Albania could have said, look, we are helping Europe on our own. This is our capacity, and we'll be delighted to help. So I think that would have gone far better in terms of people's conscience and getting people more on board. Having said that, I could see some sort of benefits in terms of Albania showing solidarity with the rest of Europe that is trying to do its share. Europe, on the other hand, it seems to be unable to fulfill its very basic quota. So every country in the EU should take about 30,000 migrants per year. And it seems that they're trying to avoid this by engaging with third countries, such as in the case of Italy, but also Germany is exploring this idea, France, and so on. So that does worry me. However, it's quite important, and it will be a test for Albania when it gets it, that it's able to fulfill its human rights obligation, it's able to apply its legislation. So I could see that being sort of a positive in that aspect, that you're helping others. And if you can show that you are able to manage this, it will be good moving forward. But it will also be good and a test for the society, so how acceptable we are from different. So that's really new for us, because we haven't had that in the past. So that's my perspective, but I understand everyone would be quite divided on this, but still, we should not do it, and I need to re-emphasize it, not in a negative connotation.
Now, I actually, I asked Twitter what their view was. Now, on Twitter this week, I got into quite a lot of heated debates about this situation, but I asked my followers, are you in favour of Italy processing asylum applicants in Albania as per the recently announced deal? And we got 548 votes in just a few hours, and 84% of the population said no. 84% of those who responded said no, 13% said yes, and 4% had other reasons, and these included Albania not having the infrastructure for so many refugees, the fact that Albania has a problem with lots of people leaving the country and it's not doing enough to stop that from happening, a lack of information to be able to form a proper decision. Why must it be Albania? Why Albania? Why not somebody else? And also, as you mentioned as well, the fact that as Albania is a parliamentary republic, there was no consultation done with Parliament, with other politicians or the public. And this particular person said the government cannot just act arbitrarily. Andy, thank you very much for your time and for your very interesting insights on this matter.
Thank you very much. It was a real pleasure. Have a good day.
And you.